process, yeah. Thank you. So today we're going to take kind of in January, typically look at a kind of a overview of the factors that are bearing on the district right now, and as we try and prepare for the 24-25 year, which begins on July 1st of 2024. But we'll see that there's a lot of pieces still that we are open and we're trying to get answers for, and in the coming weeks I think we'll get some more answers, but we're trying to kind of put together our plan and share the information of what we have right now. Our vision, mission, same. Our considerations, exercising care and good judgment, managing resources, open and objective professional manner, and that's why we're here. We put these meetings out to the public. We share our thought process as we go through the budget planning. Today we'll look at budget philosophy, our vote and tax rate history, update on the state financial, state aid payments that we get and things like that, and where they stand right now. And then a couple expense areas we'll look at as well. When we do our planning, we do have things that we look at and some concerns that we have as we go forward, not just next year, but number of years down the road. We're always looking far out and what could possibly happen to the district and prepare for that. State aid and tax cap does not support higher costs driven by inflation, obviously. If the tax cap is 2 or 3%, state aid is 2 or 3%, and CPI is 8%, and last year I think it's 4.5 roughly now. Obviously we're falling behind with that. And we watch for state mandates that could come out, whether they're an instructional program with reading programs and different things that the state has that they want to put out, zero emission buses, those things we always keep a look at because it will impact our long-term expenses. And then New York State's philosophy and distribution of state aid. There's a lot of talk about redoing the philosophy and the formulation of how they do foundation aid, so we want to watch that as well for the future. This is a chart of the full value equalized tax rate, which seems like it's maybe it's less relevant now because it used to be pretty close. But with values, property values, full value going up so much, and our levy going up, not growing a lot every year, there's just a lot more value to spread that levy across, so it makes it look like the equalized tax rate is going down substantially in the last number of years. Doesn't mean your tax bill is going down, but it's just there's a lot more value of property in our district. When we look at vote results from last year, May of 23, we had very good support from the public. We thank the public for that support. The budget proposition approved 76% of the voters, 77% on transportation, purchase of buses, and we had a 79% approval rate to establish a new repair reserve. So if we look at the Proposition 1 history, it's in line with where we've been for the last 8, 9, 10 years. We've had very good support from the public, and again, we appreciate that. State aid, the district, at this point, if nothing was done, the formula would say that we would get 0 increase on foundation aid. The good news is there's a lot of districts in this boat. There's 284 districts across New York State that are showing no increase in foundation aid. So it will get a lot of attention, I would guess. I'm hoping. The governor will present the executive budget on January 16th, next Tuesday, and then House budget proposals, Senate and Assembly will be expected in March. New York State Board of Regents is recommending a 3% minimum increase on foundation aid. I think the School Board Association, I think, is saying the same thing. A minimum 3% increase on foundation is what they recommend. Obviously, that would be very important to us. Important to note this year, when you look at our aid runs, the 2020 capital project is coming to an end. We put in most of our final cost reports in December, so that will start generating building aid this year and next year. So when you look at our aid runs, if you get those printouts, you're going to see maybe a bigger increase than usual, but a lot of that's going to be because of our building aid payments going up. But those building aid payments are tied to our debt payments, so there really is no impact on the budget, but just be aware that that's going to artificially make it look like we're getting a bigger increase. Really focus on that foundation aid number from year to year, because that's most of our aid is in that foundation aid number. Go ahead, yeah.
The 3% that's being proposed, I know in the past, John, the state has always done a minimum of 0.75%, I think it was. I think that's what we received for quite a few years now.
Going pretty far back, yeah.
Yeah. What are the chances that we're actually gonna see something above 1% as an increase?
Because there's so many districts that are at 0, I think there's a good chance you're gonna see some kind of minimum, and I think it'll be in the 2 to 3. That's what the expectations are that we're hearing from a lot of people. Because there's so many districts that have that 0 right now. It's not just a few, it's a lot.
Right.
Is that normal for that many to be?
I think that's higher than previous years. We were scheduled for 0 for a number of years, but now that's more than usual because they fully implemented foundation aid last year, so everyone is kind of brought up to where they should be. So now going into the next year, there's a lot showing 0 more than usual.
You know, another question on that. Obviously, if the first run and they're running these numbers through the formula, and we're coming up with zeros, and we have so many other school districts that are coming up with zeros as well. How are they going to just arbitrarily make a decision that we're going to give you 3%, and how are they going to adjust that? I mean, going forward, we can't keep living like this. We keep going backwards every year. You know, I mean, our costs continually to go up, and we keep falling farther and farther behind as far as our state aid goes, which again forces us to place that burden on our local taxpayers. And so then any time that an unfunded mandate comes along, those types of things just compound it for us. And I would think and I would hope that, and Doug, I don't know if the superintendents are getting together on this, that if in fact they're truly looking at the way they are distributing state aid, that there's a very strong voice from our administrators and as well as our school board members in order to get this corrected, because this is going to be on the rest of the board members going forward. It's only going to get worse year after year, and you'll see that. But I don't fear so much for this year. It's the following year that's going to really be a challenge.
Yeah, and everything you say I worry about, and I don't understand the governor with some of the statements she's starting to talk about her budget. She did it this week, so hopefully I'm not stealing any John's thunder. But with it, she made a comment how they fully funded the foundation aid last year. Okay, well, if you funded it last year, where is the increase in it for inflation? Prices went up. Everyone has seen it. I mean, you go buy a piece of plywood now compared to a year ago. Buy a thing of paper, pencils, anything that we use here. And she is proposing no adjustment for that at all. And John will have a slide later up where it'll show what we've had with the state, you know, for the aid coming in, what we've had from the taxpayers and what the inflation is. And you can see exactly what you're saying, how we're not keeping up. And we've been doing more with less year after year after year. And there will be a time where we can't do that. And it's tough. John does a great job, and I want to say all the faculty, all the staff members, all the employees of Iroquois do a great job. They all chip in a little more year after year after year. But if everyone shows up and works their complete full 8 hours, where's it coming from? I mean, if everyone's working as hard as they can, you can't get any more. If everyone's chipping in as much as they can, you can't get any more. And that's the hard part. And I wish the state would recognize that. I was at a meeting last Friday where all the superintendents of Erie 2 BOCES, that's what we're part of, will be going to Albany, contacting our legislators here, of seeing what they can do to push for more. I wish the governor would have an open ear, you know, especially being from Western New York, to schools in Western New York and listening. I have not been able to find anyone to have any crossroads, have any luck of contacting or talking to the governor in any fashion. We'll keep trying, we're gonna keep working on it, we have letters going in, attempts to make phone calls. We have our groups that we work with that we're members of. I know school boards will, I know the council of superintendents will. The different unions that represent employees of the districts, they will be in there too. I just hope that all of a sudden a light goes off and realizes inflation is an important part that's not being taken care of.
Well, Doug, and again, I don't want to dwell on this, but it's not just the inflation that's hurting us. I mean, our state constitution, directs our legislators that they have to provide fully funding for the education of our children. That's primary through high school. It doesn't say we need to fund charter schools. It doesn't say we need to fund pre-K. It doesn't say we need to fund college education. Yet all of those dollars are all lumped into the education budget. And what gets forgotten is what the primary purpose or their primary mission is to provide fully funded for us, for our kids going through our primaries in our middle school and our high school. And I think they need to get that straightened out first, then decide how much extra funding you have to provide all of the extras. But we need to get back to the basics here, or our kids are going to be suffering mightily in the future, I believe. Or our parents and taxpayers are going to be suffering, a lot.
Well, and that's where I think the state is, taxpayers, residents are being shown a bill of goods, I guess I'll word it that way, and it's maybe not the best wording, but I think it's true, because they go out saying, look how much money we put towards education. But it's earmarked for certain groups. It's not divvied up equitably. It's a grant that is specifically for this group of people, because if you meet these qualifications, you have, you're moved to the top to get the grant, to get the money, to get the funding, whatever you want to call it.
I would love to know how much money is in the education budget that never gets claimed because, school districts can't qualify for that.
Yeah, and I know Dr. Dudek spent a lot of time working on a grant, for money that they said would be out there. And I believe she called the other day and said, where are we with that? And they said, well, we'll let you know when we get there.
It's
So that's
kinda like-
money that was already earmarked, already said to be there for education, and we have no date or anything on it.
That's kind of like saying that there's going to be money there for the electric buses as well. Like 2 days ago in the news, Lakeshore got a grant for 20 buses,
Yeah.
which I'm sure we applied for those grants, but
We are applying.
there's not a long shot that we'll ever get any money. I don't know what the criteria is, but
Oh, yeah, and that was my questions to the gentleman who gave the presentation on the buses, as far as those grants go. Is it first come, first serve? And when the money runs out, it runs out, and everybody else is, holding the bag. Is it wise for a school district to jump in, with both feet at this point in time when there are so many unknowns? I mean, to me, that's fiscally irresponsible.
Yeah.
But then are you fiscally irresponsible because you might be, missing out on grant money?
And that's the hard balance. We are partnering with a company and looking to see what we can get in a grant, so we can do a test pilot in this area. So hopefully we can get that. John, I think I just signed those a week ago.
Yep.
So they're all submitted and going in.
Yep.
It's very frustrating to do business this way. I guess, I don't want to belabor this because John has so much time, but I can guarantee you we'll be meeting with the senators and assemblymen, and very thankful. I know the ones in our area are vocal. Definitely Assemblyman DiPietro really speaks his mind at the state level, and Senator Galvin definitely has meetings and listens to whatever say. In fact, there's a letter about electric buses I'll be talking about later that he's signed on to, so.
Okay. So again, when those those aid runs come out, just focus really on that foundation aid. That's really the critical item for us. UPK, Universal Pre-K, the executive budget next week, when we'll find out more information, but they have been very supportive of UPK, so we don't see significant changes in funding in that program because they've been building on it every year, it seems. We expect to have funding to provide 4 UPK classes in 24-25, which would be one more than we have right now. School nutrition, I put this in here because I've gotten questions, and maybe the board has gotten questions about this. The community eligibility provision for free lunch and breakfast for students across New York State. The change happened that they expanded the eligibility for this program. It used to be if you had 40% or more of your students qualified for free reduced lunch, the entire school district could get free lunches. They backed that down to now if you have 25% or more of your students qualify for free reduced lunch, the entire district is eligible. We do not still qualify. We range in our buildings from 11% to 19%, so we're not really even close at this point. If they back that number down again going forward, possibly we might, but right now we're not there. That's why. Because
What does the direct certified only mean?
direct certified is when you're Medicaid eligible. Or direct certified. It's not through an application. They don't want to go by applications because those could be, doctored, I guess. So it's direct cert people only. Tax cap calculation is another big part of our revenue. At this point, I don't have all the parts of that formula finalized because there's some pieces that are open still. I'm estimating that our allowable levy increase will be 2.7 to 3.2. The growth factor is going to be 2% because anything, if CPI is above 2, if it's 4%, it goes to 2%. But that's one part of the calculation. The other part is a tax-based growth factor. And it's a little higher than previous years. And that's kind of has to do with new developments within your district. If there's, new brick and mortar, new houses going in, they have a growth factor that allows you to increase the levy a little more because you'll probably be providing more services for those new developments. So that's almost 1% there. And typically, if you take that 1%, you have the 2% allowable. We usually will be around 3%. That's why the estimate's around there. You can look at our history on the right side where we've been with a levy increase. But that's where, at the next meeting or the next work session in March, we'll have that finalized. But again, it'll be right around that area of 3%. And here's the slide Doug was talking about. Here's our history of our foundation aid and our tax levy. And you can see that on the right side, that constitutes those two things are 78% of the revenue we take in. So it's a big chunk of what we take in. And at the bottom, you can see how that compares to where CPI has been. And you can see our levy was, CPI was lower. Our levy increase was allowed lower. And as CPI has increased, we've been pushing above 2% because the formula has allowed that. And you can see, 2.5 on the levy, 3% on foundation aid in 22-23, and our expenses were going up maybe by 4.7%. And in 23-24, 8% on CPI, and we're getting 3% or less on our major revenue sources. So that's hard to keep up, as we were just saying. It's hard to keep up with expenses when you're kind of flat on what's coming in.
John, on the slide, you have the foundation aid and the tax levy, equaling 78% of all school revenue. What, broken down, what is the foundation aid? What is the tax levy?
I'd say foundation aid is a little less than a quarter of it, and levy is probably 2/3 of it.
Okay.
Yeah. Just some of the only expenses I'm looking at right now are just some of these bigger items that we kind of keep an eye out for. Teacher retirement system and our employee retirement system are bigger expenses. Right now, the teacher retirement system, which is, more of our employees, majority of our employees are in that one. Our contributions are only projected to go up slightly. We're at 9.76 right now, and they're projecting for next year 9.75 to 10.25. So that's good news. That's not going up very much, very little change. The employee retirement system is showing a bigger increase right now and a bigger estimated increase. But again, it's fewer of our employees, our contribution on that one. So hopefully it's not a big impact. We'll have to kind of evaluate how that goes. And they might, get a better number for us besides 14.67 in the coming months. And then health insurance, we've been doing fairly well with our self-insured health insurance. And we've been doing definitely better than the public programs out there that we could have participated in. next year, we're probably going to look at 1 to 3% increase on health insurance, which is pretty good, considering what's out there and what other districts are experiencing. So that's in a good place as well at this time.
With that, the health insurance, a big thing to note there is a thank you to all the employees for making healthy choices, for being proactive and taking care of themselves, because heading off medical situations helps reduce the cost. They do pay part of the health insurance, and so with that, that is why we are so much lower than the average. I know Dave sends out an email about once a month, just about different ideas and things that we receive, so that's awesome. And I usually get this question too, and it's usually, why did John do his math wrong? And when you look at it for the ERS, you see the 18% there, but people say, well, 12 or 14 minus 12, he gets 18. That's that new math. But you got to remember, the percentage increase is, it's going up about 2.3%. So it's 2.3 divided by 12 to get the 18% increase. Just to be aware, so when people are home and are watching this video and they understand why it says 18.
And there is an exclusion in the tax cap calculation that if the retirement system's contribution grows by more than 2%, and you can see that does slightly grow above 2% increases, 2% of increase, that there's a provision for the tax cap calculation. So there might be something, but it's going to be very minimal impact on the tax cap calculation because it's a very small difference. So right now, it's not going to change much. In May, we will have our budget vote, but we also have the Proposition 2, which is our vehicle replacement. We'll be proposing 3 full-size buses, which is kind of our schedule to replace buses. Buses last about 10 years. We have about 35 buses. If we replace 3 or 4 every year, that means we'll be on our schedule to replace everything every 10 years. So that's that. And then we have 2 smaller buses. We are going to apply, we're applying for a couple different grants to try and get those smaller buses subsidized. And if we can make the price equivalent to what a conventional fuel bus is, I think it makes sense to go with an electric because that yearly annual cost is going to be definitely lower. So we'll see how that plays out. And if we can get those for the same cost or better than these, I think it makes sense to dip our toe in the water and try a couple of vehicles. But we'll keep you up to date on that as we go forward if that does happen. So next steps, we're going to finalize the tax cap calculation. We're meeting with department heads and administrators and going through their projections for next year. We're going to look at our reserves and fund balance, evaluate retirements. We have till February for teachers to announce retirements, and those have an impact on next year's budget. So we await those as well. Enrollment changes, if they occur, we'll of course monitor state aid and review our BOCES projection for next year as well. So we got the governor. We're also working on right now with Senator Gallivan. We're looking at trying to have legislation added to give Iroquois a health insurance reserve. There is for districts that are self-insured. There is no real way for us to put aside money for health insurance legally. So we need a special legislative action to make that happen. So we're working with his office to get us on maybe a list in April or so that they could approve us, that we could establish that reserve if we'd like. So I think that helps as far as looking at our long-term costs, being able to in good years, put aside some money so when you have the high claim years that you're ready and you can handle those. Next budget work session is in March, but as I have here, I'll give an update on February 12th, kind of a state aid situation and where we are. If things change dramatically next week, I'll try and let you know how that's progressing. And then we have two budget work sessions, March and April, and the May vote.
Jen?
Yes.
I have 2 things. One, I know the first one is I know it's really preliminary, but do we have any idea of where the shortfall is going to be?
Shortfall?
Between what our expected revenue and our expected expenses are going to be? Or are we going to have a surplus?
It's kind of early to make. I don't want to scare people, but it's not as big a number. It's a more manageable number it was last year at this time.
Okay.
We're probably in a gap of $400,000 or $500,000 gap.
Okay.
But more manageable than it was last year.
And the other question, only because it is a budget hearing, and I think that actually Dave is a little aware of this, is that twofold. As I know, a group of lacrosse people and parents are asking for more coaches because of numbers. But the question I had is, if that's true, and if they're going to have, 55 kids at modified, going forward, what would be the feasibility of creating another modified team? Because there's a cost to that. And I think that, Dave, you had some conversations, right, on that whole topic? So just so they're not theory, so we can have a number to it and what it's going to look like?
Yeah,
Try to address that?
and we will have a meeting scheduled with the athletic office and Carrie Better, so we'll talk through that as well and what projection is for that. And she gives those expenses to me and what she plans for next year. So we will discuss that, yeah.
And I think an important piece is if you're looking at any one sport, it really has to be across the board. If you're going to say, if we have such a great number of people at modified that we would run a A and B team, we need to think of it as a board that we would fund that for all sports of what it would be. The cost is definitely able to be figured out because the modified coaches' salaries are in there. So if it would be limited to running another modified team. And we are about student experience here. That's one of the strategic plan items. So we can definitely get a number for that and look at the sports that we think would have that. Nothing against volleyball. I was a volleyball coach, but typically they're not running a modified team. We do budget for a modified team, so we may not be looking at this point for 2 modified teams there. But for other sports that do have greater numbers, we could get a number like that together.
Yeah, just to begin the discussion, because, numerous people have asked, and just to look at it.
No, that's good, thank you. Any other questions? I think we're right on schedule. I'll bring in the guests.
And as always, if you guys hear anything as you go to different meetings, email them to John and I, and we can include them across your presentations or try to get clarification of what they are. For new board members, there's a gentleman by the name of Dr. Timms. It's always an interesting lesson of trying to follow him as he talks. It takes 2 or 3 years, but he was a previous superintendent for Erie 2 BOCES, and he's been doing it for years of just showing where we are, where the state is, where other schools are, and he does make a statement. There's plenty of money if the state would, as Chuck said, spread it around equitably. Sorry, everyone, you can chit-chat for a while. We have to wait 2 minutes because we publish it starts at 7. So I want you to say, why are we staring at you? It's just because you're a great audience. Never seen such a beautiful audience.
Okay, so you're gonna say the pledge, and we start when you start. And then when you're done, Mr. Schofield's gonna invite you up to the flag so your parents can get a really nice picture of you, okay? All right, thanks. Any questions? You good?
Okay. Additionally, no more than 3 people may speak on a single topic unless the board waives this limitation as well. This is a meeting held in public rather than a public meeting, which means we will not engage in dialogue with members of the community this evening. District personnel will follow up with you regarding your concerns. Please rest assured, we are listening carefully and take seriously what you have to say. Please demonstrate respect by speaking to the issues, sharing ideas and opinions, but not engaging in personal attacks. The board appreciates your willingness to share your concerns and celebrations this evening. Please be advised that this meeting is being live streamed and the recording is posted on the Iroquois website. And with that, I'd like to bring up our Elma primary students, Jackson and Candace, who will be leading us in the pledge. Cadence? Cadence, sorry about that.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. It's time to get your picture with Mr. Schofield.
Come on, take a picture with me. Will this be your Christmas card for next year?
Got some tall ones. Hi, how are you? Good evening.
All right. And then I would like to call up our 8th grade students, Sienna, Luke, and Keating, who will be giving the board an update on the things that are happening in the middle school. My building, I'm the ambassador. I always like to see the middle school students.
Good evening, Board. Our first one up is Sienna McCabe. Sienna. Is that good for you?
Okay. Hello, my name is Sienna McCabe. Okay. Hello, my name is Sienna McCabe, and I had the privilege to interview Miss Wadoka about the Jingle Bell Power Hour, which was during the final week before holiday break. SGB has been organizing the Jingle Bell Power Hour for over 5 years now. All middle school students receive a number the day before the Power Hour occurs. Once the day is finally here, every hour, on the hour, one student's number from each grade level is randomly picked. The winning students must hurry to the main foyer in less than 5 minutes to collect their prize. The winning student, every year the prizes are different, and this year's featured fun holiday hats. If the student does not make it down in less than 5 minutes, SGB picks another number. This is a fun activity for all students, and in the future, Ms. Wadoka hopes to fundraise more money for SGB for better prizes. SGB organized multiple other activities this year as well. For Christmas, SGB reps were able to decorate the Christmas tree in the main foyer. They hung ornaments and put ribbons on the tree. They also sold candygrams before Christmas break. The candygrams are little cards with candy canes attached to the card. They were $2 per dollar and you can send them to peers. This was a fun way to spread holiday cheer. I would also like to share one of my best memories this year as an 8th grader, which was the activity day just for my grade. It was so much fun to go around each station and be able to learn about the people in my group. That day really helped me connect with others and I enjoyed it very much. Thank you so much for your time today, and now I would like to introduce Keaton Killalay, who's talking about the connectivity days we have had.
Hello, my name is Keating Killalay, and I'm here to talk to you about Connectivity Days here at the middle school. Connectivity Days are days set aside in the year where all kids are able to connect with their teachers and classmates. I was able to talk to some of the teachers involved in these days. Mrs. Van Ortwijk was a very helpful guide, and she informed me about everything there is to know. The Connectivity Days are usually on Ames Web testing days. She told me these days are almost like a reward to the kids for working so hard on the exams. Connectivity Days consist of many activities, including a home base activity, a team activity, a grade level activity, and lastly, a school-wide activity. These activities vary every year or so. This year, for the second year in a row, our middle school had hosted a school-wide Family Feud competition. Other activities for this year included positivity plates, a spelling bee preliminary round, and friendship snacks. Faculty and staff work hard to make this day happen, and almost everyone enjoys it. Students and teachers can connect with each other, and as an 8th grader, I'd like to say that these connectivity days are a very nice way to learn about people. Before I leave, I'd just like to say that this school is a great academic school, and I'm grateful I could be here. One of my favorite parts of this middle school is the drama club and art department. If anyone has any questions, I will gladly try to answer them. If not, I'd like to...
Well, I'll ask you a question.
Sorry.
You opened me
Okay,
up.
sorry.
I should have done that. Drama Club, January 26th, 27th is the show?
Yes, correct.
And you are doing the Newsies?
Yes.
How good is it going to be?
I hope very well.
I hope so. I'm going to be there.
It's gonna
I'm
be
looking forward to
fabulous.
it.
It's going to be fabulous.
If there are no more questions, I would like to introduce Luke, who is up next.
Hi guys, my name is Luke Golombieski, and recently during one of our gym classes, the Buffalo Bandits sent in a...
You can take it off and hold it.
There you go.
Recently during one of our gym classes, the Buffalo Bandits sent in a few of their players to teach us the basics of lacrosse set up by Mr. Bennett. They came in with lacrosse sticks and balls and let us try some basic drills and compete against them. It was a great experience, and we got some free tickets to a game. The players came in and explained what they had to do to become a professional lacrosse player. The players were very cool and made the time that we had fun. In addition to the Bandits, as an 8th grader in the middle school, one thing that made my middle school experience enjoyable was the opportunity to play sports. Being on a team at school gives you many friends that you thought you would never know before, and a fun season to remember. Thank you for letting me speak about the happenings at the middle school. Have a great night.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Thank you so much, students, for your reports. It's always great to hear from the middle school. Thank you. Make sure you come back to see us when you're in high school. All right. And with that, that brings us to the board discussion and news worth sharing. So does anybody have an ambassador report from their school that they'd like to share this evening?
I actually do. On December 13th, I spent about 3.5 hours with the transportation department just to get a feel for how transportation functions within the district. Met with the technicians, some of the drivers and so forth, and what I can tell you is that they're a very dedicated group of individuals, very focused in getting the kids where they need to go. Even if they're not prepared, even if they're short of drivers, even if there's not buses, they really try their best to get the kids where they need to go and communicate. So very impressed with how Eric and Danny kind of pull that team together. Brought some donuts and coffee just to kind of break the ice with some of the folks there, and it was a great time. And spent some time with them, and I think it was a good experience. The other time I spent about 4 hours at the high school on December 15th, and just sat down with the administration, with Doug and Alexis, and to kind of get a feel for how things are going at the high school. For me, it was kind of my first time working with the principals. I'm technically a little bit farther back. But they showed me kind of the platform of the high school, the kids, the changing of classes. And lo and behold, I saw almost all of my kids, except I saw Ava, I saw Kendall, but did not see Addison. But, it was great. It was great to see that, the environment that they strike, the focus that they have with the kids, and all the effort they put into not only their current day-to-day, but future outlook. So I just wanted to report that, spending the time was well worth it. My schedule allows me to spend a little bit more time during the day, so I carved out those 2 days just before Christmas to do that. My plan is to probably go back in the next, probably in February, spend a little more time just to continue to be engaged. The purpose is not for oversight, it's more to be engaged, understanding what's going on, and so that we can best represent the district, and as an ambassador to the transportation in high school, what does that look like? What are some of the day-to-day activities? And just get a different perspective.
Nice, good.
Well, I happen to be friends with some people in the bus garage, and they were raving about your visit. So, well done.
Is it competition? Because you did it last year, right?
No, you're doing a far better job than I did. I did not have 4 hours to spend there.
I think you want them over to donuts and coffee.
I was going to say, Heather only brought coffee, you brought donuts too, so.
I know, right?
Whoever has it next year, you better start baking your pies.
I know, right? So from Alma Primary, I went to the sing-along on December 18th. I brought the staff breakfast on Friday, December 22nd, when they had a half-day. Met with them before the kids came, and I wanted to make sure that everyone in the district, or in that building, knew that I was their board ambassador. So it was a good time there. Everyone seemed to be in good spirits, getting ready for the holiday break. Tonight was a PTO meeting, so I could not attend it. They alternate between mornings and evenings. From an ITech perspective, I attended the meeting on December 11th. They have an upcoming spaghetti dinner on Tuesday, January 16th. Tickets can be bought at itechemw.com. I was previously part of the general coalition, and they asked me if I wanted to be part of the steering committee. So I checked with Doug and Jane to make sure that that was okay. So I'm officially a part of the steering committee. And January 4th, I attended the wellness committee meeting with John Wolski, learning more about nursing staff and food services and things along those nature. So it was good. That's all I had.
I attended the sing-along at Wales. The kids did a great job. Am I too far away? Oh, I thought this one picks it up better. Sorry. The kids did a great job, and I've got to give a shout out to Madison from the music department. She did a great job preparing the kids. The kids were really engaged, and they had a visit at the end of the fourth grade presentation of for the hippopotamus. All I want to is a hippopotamus, and that was Mrs. Morrison. She dressed up, so that was really cool. And I also attended the PTO meeting, which was very well attended. And the parents, they're planning for a lot of fun activities. We have an ice skating event coming up on the 15th, so for the families at Wales, so I'll be there as well.
And just one other comment about Alma Primary. I know with the sing-along, it felt like we were sardines in the gym, and only one or two family members could attend. So the question was raised if, for going forward, maybe having the fourth grade kids, well, I shouldn't say that because they're going to be here already. But the third grade kids maybe coming to the main campus like they do to come to Holly Hanging, just to allow for a larger venue so more people can attend. Because it was pretty tight and probably like a
Space issues.
space issue in general if there was an emergency getting people out. So it's just something to consider for next year.
Standing room only.
I'm writing that down now to mention it to them so to make sure they know it's open. I know over the years we've talked about it for different reasons that I can't recall now. I know they prefer to have it at the buildings, and I just can't recall what they are. But I'll make sure that they're aware of that.
Thanks.
Anybody else? I have a report from the middle school. It's very short. I was able to attend the 5th through 12th grade orchestra concert the day after our board meeting. Heather was with me, and we had the opportunity to listen to the orchestra students with their 2 new orchestra teachers, and I thought the concert was fabulous. And I also was, after the concert, was able to speak to each teacher, welcome them to Iroquois, and they both expressed how excited they are to be here. And again, I think that our orchestra students are in great hands with these 2 ladies. So that was enjoyable.
And at the end, when they played like all
Good King
together
Wenceslas.
for I think one one of the first times, it sounded tremendous. I mean, I was full of tears.
Yeah,
but, it was
all,
amazing.
all of the students participated, 5th grade through 12th grade played together and with one piece. I hope that they continue that as a tradition now because it was really fabulous. Standing ovation. It was nice.
Absolutely. I don't know if I should jump in here and say this or not, if you said that it was great having them all together, but one of the orchestra teachers did come to me and say the length of the performance, having 5 through 12 all together, was extremely long. And so she was asking if we would support her in exploring having a 5-8, and possibly a year after a 4-8, and then a 9-12 performance. I said, definitely we support the music department if that's what you think would be best for students, and the adults explore it and get back to us, so she's going to be exploring that.
Very good. That's okay, too.
I, I did get to attend, the sing-along at, Marilla Primary. I have no idea what date it was. Doug was there, so it's on his calendar.
One of the Christmas holidays.
But it was great. The kids did a fantastic job, and, I also got to meet the music teacher, and it was very reassuring, to speak with her.
Me personally, if you want to start your holidays off with a joy, come to one of our primaries or secondary concerts, because you can't, you have to walk away with a smile. It's just the way it is. You have to feel good. So if you're out shopping and you're feeling a little pressured, come to one of those. So they're just awesome.
Very good. ECASB updates, did anybody go to any workshops or meetings in the last month? There was, no, I was gonna say, it's been kind of quiet there. I've been attending some, local conferences with legislators. I will be, in Senator Gallivan's office tomorrow. If anybody wants to go with me, it's at 3:00. I visited with Senator Kennedy's staff and with Senator Ryan and Assemblyman Riviera has a meeting coming up too in January if anybody wants to attend that. And basically what we're talking about there is the same kinds of things we talk about here at our table. We're talking about student mental health and the needs of school districts across Western New York. We're talking about zero emission buses and foundation aid, the same kinds of things. And the conversations are good. They are listening. They are really receptive to what we're saying. I think that they are understanding what the needs are, but, just like us, they have other people pressuring them with other needs across the state. And I'm glad I'm not in their position, I guess. But, so I will be continuing that. And then the NISBA Capital Conference is coming up. If you want to attend the virtual session, that's on February 2nd, and then the in-person in Albany conference is on February 7th. I'm planning on attending that as a representative of ECASB, and Heather's going to go. I don't know if any, you're not sure. So, but if anybody wants to go to that, let me know. I'm happy to have more people tag along. We have NISBA and ECASB are teaming up together on January 27th for a breakfast event exploring AI in education. And I think that that's one of those topics that we should be at least paying some attention to. We, looking at, do we need policies, procedures, and that sort of thing? How does AI fit into education? Where do we want our students to use it, if we want our students to use it? There's a lot of questions about it and how it works. And so I think that this is a good first step to, really starting to expose ourselves to what that's going to look like and how that's going to impact us as a board and decisions that we need to make about education in the future. So there's that program coming up, and I'm not sure when the deadline is to register, but you need to let Nora know by Friday.
Yeah.
So take a look at your schedule.
I think I've already signed up
Okay.
for that.
Good.
And I've participated in some other Gen AI technical trainings and so forth based on the software space that I'm in. So it will be very interesting to see this side of it.
Yeah, interesting. Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
And Jane and I are planning on taking the train to Albany, so if anyone's interested, let us know if you want to come with us.
I like
And
the train.
the delegate assembly meeting's not until February 15th, the next one, so
Okay.
it'll be after the next board meeting.
Okay. Other items that anybody wants to bring up and discuss? I know that we do have one issue that has been raised due to a letter that has been sent to most of the board members, not every board member received one, that was not really signed by a specific individual. And I did talk with Keith briefly and said you should do the speaking. We talked a little bit. So I'm going to let you
Sure.
address that issue now.
So yeah, there, just to kind of open up with, and I've had to compile some notes because the level of communication that was sent took me back a little bit. So, and I think it did take a few others back a little bit. And I kind of want to open up and ground ourselves with a few things. I've prepared a few statements I'm going to read from, and then other parts I'm just going to talk about. But I kind of want to open with, you know, on behalf of myself and my family, it's really a pleasure and an honor to serve as an Iroquois board member. Over my short tenure, there's been several hot topics with careful consideration and review. With that, though, I think we also want to make sure we understand, and I think the community, those that are watching, understand what a board member really is. We are elected officials. We're elected by the community for a 5-year term. A volunteer position, so none of us here representing the board are getting paid. We're guided by the New York State Board of Association, School Board Association, and we implement policies of Iroquois and follow the New York State Education Department of Regulations. So we are here in our own will, based on as an elected official not an official, elected individual to represent the community. And so for us, for effective communication to the board, I want to make sure, because we are elected, we are representative, it's important that we have clear communication. So effective communication to us as the board is either email, letters to the district, organization versus personal. What that means is letters to perhaps the school, the district itself, versus personal letters sent to our individual homes. We'll get into that in a moment. Administration, superintendent, principals, Doug or whomever principal is out there. Board meetings, if there is an issue or something that is very interesting that you want to bring to the table, here's the forum, right here, right now. I want to kind of go into what we received or what I received first, and then sort of spilled out and trickled out into others. And what it was on Monday, January 8th, I received an envelope addressed to Mr. Keith Regine and family. That's key because it was addressed to myself and my family. Upon opening, the contents were a card with writing on the outside. Holiday wishes. So you're just thinking it's a Christmas card. After opening, it was clearly not a belated Christmas card because the typed and pasted note inside didn't reflect that. I'm going to read the note, and I want to make sure that it's very clear that this is what was written to board members, and it should be public. Here's hoping you and your kids get the same shit sandwich this Christmas we did and a crappy New Year. Better hope this goes well. Our parents are watching. Signed, EMW 3rd grade. I pause for a moment because it still kind of hits me, the fact that somebody would think that was good. Now, going a little bit further, I was taken back. This is me personally. I was taken back, and there were a flurry of emotions that arose, and I'm reading off of what I wrote because I don't know that I couldn't say it as well as I wrote it. So here's how I authored it. After the flurry of emotions, but the one that stuck with me was violation. Not only in the professional sense as a board member, as we're elected and volunteers, but also in the personal sense as a father, a husband, and community member. Thinking, how did someone in the community believe this was an effective communication method, sending what I believe, by definition, is hate mail. Hate mail, by definition, is a hostile and sometimes threatening letters or other messages sent, usually anonymously, to an individual or group. Signed by the EMW 3rd grade. Not the parents, but insinuating that it's coming from the students. It made me question what level of character and integrity is actually present in some of the community. Crossing the line, authoring hate mail, and sending to various BOE members. For what? accountability for this, I'm assuming moving third grade, to go well. I want to end with this. I'm committed, and I'm hoping I speak for the rest of the board here. I'm committed to all students and do not believe that one isolated outreach represents the majority. I want to thank the members of the community that are engaged in a professional and productive and appropriate communication, because it is important. We all have to communicate well. I want to leave this topic with these questions. These are questions not to be answered by the board. These are questions not to be answered in response. These are thought-provoking. Does this event define what our local community is proud of? Signed by the EMW third grade, does this card represent every student and family in the district? Does this method of communication cross the line? And lastly, what does your success criteria or unit of measurement for this to go well? We are here doing what we believe is best every step of the way. We reevaluate. We adjust. We take in more information. These questions for me are important because I want to leave the community with, is this isolated? Or is this a serial issue?
I'd, just like to add a few things to that, and that was very well said, Keith. When I was made aware of the letter and I saw the picture of your note, my first reaction was sadness. I've served on this board. This is my 15th year. Over the course of those 15 years, we've had some controversial topics come up. We've had, some problems to deal with. We've had irate parents. We've had supportive parents. We've had the gambit. But over the course of those 15 years, never once did anyone attempt to communicate in the fashion that they did. I also got one of the letters. Fortunately, mine was glued shut so hard that as I was trying to open it up, I could see the glitter, so I escaped most of the mess. But it is truly a sad commentary. I mean, Iroquois Central has always been a family. And it didn't matter whether you were a parent, just a community member, a teacher, a student, a grandparent. We're all here for each other, to help each other. And as Keith said, we're volunteers here. And we're charged with doing what's best for all of our students. Not just the student of my neighbor, or Keith's kids, anybody here. It's for everyone. And we have to make the best decisions possible given the information that we have. And to have a parent spend the time and take that kind of effort over moving a child from one school building to another, I have no words for that. I mean, this is not the first time children have to be moved from buildings to building. It's not because we're trying to persecute the current third graders. It's for the betterment of our entire school community. Everyone would benefit, and I know some of the parents don't think their child is going to benefit. They're missing out on something. I can tell you your child is not missing out on anything. And they will have a very good experience. We've never had problems like have been proposed when we've moved children from it's not the first time this has happened. And there will come a time, I'm sure, in the future where you may have to start looking at some redistricting in order to balance out, the usage of the primary buildings. And again, yeah, is it ideal? No, but is it the best? Is it what is best for our family as a whole? Yes, it is. And it just disappoints me so much that we have individuals or parents out there, I don't know if this is a parent, a community member, who it is that sent it, that they cannot come and talk face to face or send a reasonable, letter with their concerns. We don't operate in a vacuum. We've listened to the parents come. We have received email upon email, and we've read and digested all of that information. We've received the information from the experts in the field, from our administration, our teachers that are support. Is everybody in agreement on it? No, we have some teachers that are thrilled, some that aren't so thrilled about it. We're always going to have differences. Bottom line is, what is the best thing for our students? And as a whole, that was the best decision to make. And if you're having that kind of reaction over your child moving from one school building to another school building 1 year ahead of when they were formally scheduled to do that, I would ask you to get some help. Talk to somebody. You want to talk to somebody? If you're angry about something, I have thick skin. Give me a call. It's okay. You can yell at me. You can get whatever is off on your chest off. But please know, we do listen to you all, and we make our decisions based on all of the information that we have. And that's, hopefully, we won't experience this again.
I just want to add a couple more thoughts as you were speaking, Chuck. And one of the thoughts is, as a board member, I feel there's a level of accountability for us and for Doug and the administration. I want the community to know that this isn't just turning the page and moving forward, that myself and I think the board are holding the administration accountable for this to go well. We want this to be a great experience. There are things we can do, there's things we can't do. We're going to communicate clearly. But I think the point here is that not only was it unnecessary, but you have allegiance on the board that wants to drive this into going well. Doug and I speak at periods of time, and I ask questions, hey, how are things going? What does this look like? And, we'll hear a little bit more about that tonight, but there are folks on the board that are very close to the pulse of it, and that we're on your side. It's not an us against them.
I'd like to say that there were some parents who were truly against the move and were not happy with our decision last month. But many of those parents have emailed and said, since you've made this decision, I'm directing my energies towards helping you make sure this goes well. And they're getting involved with planning things for the students so that they have a smoother transition. They're getting involved with hiring the principal by being on a committee. They're getting involved by joining in with the PTA and creating end-of-the-year activities and planning those activities early enough so that they're going to be really successful activities. That's what I'd like to see those parents do with those energies. You don't have to like the decision to still be a part of that change and making that change successful for our students. If you have, a gripe and you want to send the board an email and sign your name to it, we're happy to read those letters and engage with those kinds of questions and comments. But sending letters to our homes and, and not signing your name makes it really hard to have that conversation with you because we don't know who you are. So.
And also directing any communication to the board members, sending it and directing it to our family and our children across the line, and it's unacceptable behavior. And we should document it. There's no way we're going to be able to find out who sent it, nor do I care to find out. But it's behavior that is unacceptable and we should document it in the event it happens going forward, and we'll have to decide next steps if it continues.
So with that, it has been, our SROs did communicate with state troopers to make sure it's documented that this did happen. And I think on another, to try to end on a positive note, the Iroquois Board of Education, as long as I've been here, as long as I've known it, as long as I've watched it from the outside, I've always been very impressed with it because you set the tone and how you're handling this professionally, appropriately, not being afraid, speaking your mind, and saying where the line is. That is a sign of true leadership. So thank you for being a board that's doing that. It is what makes any organization great, because tone is set by leadership at the top, and you guys set the right tone to have everything be for the students and for the improvement of students. So thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, then I'm going to turn over to the superintendent with the superintendent report. Mr. Schofield?
Okay, so the first one, actually, Jane, I want to back up one little thing where you talked about AI,
Yes.
where you said fit into instruction.
Yes?
I really like the way you said that, because AI is something that is going to be part of society, and it needs to fit into instruction. And so that's an important piece to note. The next piece I'd like to say is we did receive a correspondence, and it is from 15 senators, one of them being Senator Gallivan. And what it is about the electric bus mandate is a major concern. So for those people who are contacting the senator, please continue. The board has a copy of that, and I'm sure if you go into the sites, but it's really saying on behalf of schools and communities they serve, I'm requesting that you include provision to rescind the electric buses. This went to the governor. And it goes on to talk about the different problems we've mentioned at length here at our board meeting. So thank you to the senator for being part of that letter. We did have a power outage yesterday, every building except Marilla, and I just want to say everything went very well. They took care of it. Messages went out. It was interesting getting a message out while the power wasn't happening, but we were able to do that. So thank you to technology to make sure we have the capability. At the last board meeting, we did have two guests speak, both about the fourth grade. After they spoke, we did have discussion down on agenda items about what they spoke about. So I think everything was answered for them, so I did not reach out to them. The other correspondence, and I guess this speaks to exactly what we were talking about, sign your name, and we will read it, listen to it, and we even talk about it in public, because this is the right way to communicate. We received a letter from an individual, and it was just stating, and they've contacted us before, I've read other ones before, where they appreciate us reaching out, offer to have a face-to-face meeting. But it's clear to me that from people that they're talking to, that they feel there's toxicity at Iroquois, and it's beyond any one department. It's come up in many situations. They do say that they have faith that whatever is going on for students, and for the faculty, things can improve quickly. They say they're aware why a number of people have left, and they're praying this whole situation would take care of itself, but they don't believe it is, and so they're asking for the board, the administration, to keep looking into it. Greatly appreciate the extension of offering a meeting, but they believe it's beyond just meeting with them. They are proud of those that speak out and are not afraid to. So just a quick response to this letter. If someone doesn't give me defined actions, it's very hard for me to investigate it. Anytime, so I can meet with someone, find out exactly who they're talking about. Sometimes I can shed light on the situation. Sometimes in personnel issues, I can't. They mentioned talking to past administrators and their dissatisfaction where the district is now. That's a tough one for me to find out who it is, because all the past administrators I'm still in communication with really still express how they love being here. So I need names, I need dates, I need facts, I need situations, and I'd be more than happy to explore anything that's been brought to me. And in the community, those who have brought things to me know what happens because I provide feedback or they see the actions of what has happened. So those are the correspondences that we've had.
Doug?
Yes.
And I know, talked briefly on it, I was just gonna say, more general, when someone writes in, to the board, and they're writing in, as Doug was saying, in a letter, and they're generally upset, or in this case, they wanna see change, everyone at this table super wants to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. But in these letters, even if they're long, there has to be more details. When you say people are afraid of what? People are leaving and unhappy. Why are they leaving? Why are they unhappy? Just shooting up, data drives decisions. Just shooting a bunch of generalities to us doesn't really allow us to do anything. And if someone just wants to write and vent, that's fine. But if there's a problem, we want to be aware of it, and we want to be part of the solution. If you're just, writing generalities, you're more part of the problem than the solution. So I guess anyone out there, give us, some of the details and stuff we can actually discuss and talk about. This letter that Doug's talking about, the person is passionate and cares, but without any details in there, there's nothing really for us to talk about or discuss to help the problem. Just wanted to state that.
And also, Dave, as the HR director, hopefully we'll be able to gather some data on, I presume we do exit interviews when people are leaving, to see if there's any trends, but nothing is apparent has come.
No, I do. I have exit interviews with everybody who, leaves the district, whether it's, they're resigning or they're retiring or whatever the situation might be. And I'm not seeing anything that really is jumping off the board for me at this point.
Okay.
And it's also important to note that Dave does meet with the union regularly. So if they do not want to come to administration or they feel some administration, they can go to their union, and then their union brings these situations to Dave directly, with names and things for him to look into, and he does look into them, in which you get updates then in Friday memos or executive session for anything that deals with personnel. Moving on then, fourth grade transition, as was preluded. I will be talking a little more about that, giving updates to the board. Was actually even working out since last minute, getting some meetings set up. And so here's what was shown last time. The only thing I added in here was technology review and update. I recognized technology, was actually meeting with them today and talking to them about things. Was walking around with Mr. Carlin, the superintendent of buildings and grounds, because he and John said, Doug, we'd like to go look at the offices and make sure we're on the same page for what we're thinking about. Already had dates for them in here. And we were sitting there, and Mr. Jacobs, Matt, was there with us, and we went over a few things. I'm like, ooh, those are good points. And I also want to thank everyone in all of this since we made the decision. And Jane said about people trying to solve the problem. I really don't like the word problem. Make the transition and make the move better than it was. Everyone is coming up with ideas. Heard an idea about the libraries just today in a conversation I had with someone, after I had a previous conversation with people about the libraries. So they're thinking about it, and they're not stuck in any one mindset. They're being creative in their ideas and rethinking based on the conversations and growing. Third grade transition planning. This is the first thing. If I back up to the slide, I kind of tried to go down in the order that they were here. They're not all on here because some of them are not two yet.
Can I ask something just on the previous slide?
Yeah.
So, how many people applied for the principal position?
We'll get to that.
Oh, okay.
When we go through each
Okay, and then the timeline for when the principal will be hired?
Yep. Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, I'm jumping in.
No, that's okay. I usually do that myself, so I'm kind of glad I have a peer.
Okay.
So this is the first one on there. So the third grade transition planning. So what we're doing by planning is the principals are taking care of it, but I meet with them every Friday at 8:15, I believe is the time, and discuss it with them. What is this week? I heard this, heard that. Have you changed anything? I saw in an email that went out to the staff at Wales, comments, so I said, well, are the other buildings on the same page? And then we discussed that, worked through it. Things that they have accomplished or are in the process of accomplishing. The third grade graders are leading the building and announcements. This will start in February, and this is one of the, we talk about having the leadership roles, having the opportunities. Fourth graders, just to let you know, are not missing out. They've been able to get through all the fourth graders, and so now they're starting to begin this with the third graders in February. State assessments, well, I think all the kids are really excited to take part in this. The intermediate building tour, that is talking about the third graders coming up and touring. We don't have a date. It is going to happen. It's not going to be part of with the fourth graders. That was one of the first questions they had. Should it be them together or them separate? And the administrators and myself all quickly said separate. The third graders will be treated as their own group moving up. The fourth graders will be treated as their own group moving up in everything. Bison's baseball game, this is something new. They're putting this in. We're getting the funding for that to make sure it happens. It will happen on May 23rd. Thank you to the phys ed instructor, Jim, down at Wales for putting this together. This is something for the third graders, so they're all coming together, meeting each other, talking to each other, spending time together that's unique to them. There'll be a third grade picnic. Used to be a third grade picnic before fourth grade moved down. Then it went to fourth grade picnic, so there was a year without a picnic. So we're making up for it. We'll have 2 picnics. The third graders will do it on the 30th. The fourth graders will do it on the 31st. They will have their moving up ceremony in June. So that is the things currently that they have on schedule now. If there's other things, we'll keep updating it as we work and check on this. Special education, the director of special ed, Mr. Hershey, met with Ross of the middle school, just talking about how things were running there. He also talked with principals at the elementary level, and so they're going to have parallel programs. Why I say parallel, not identical, is because with special education, it's based on the needs of the students. So since not everyone's identical, that's why it'll be parallel programs. Science, social studies, we're looking to have consultant teachers in those areas where ELA and math will have co-teaching. There will be a 12-1-1. I know you heard talk of a 15-1. Look at the needs of the students. It's still in the continuum. It could possibly happen, and I will update you if it does. But right now, based on the needs of the students, that's what we believe will happen. ISP will become a guided study class. This is to allow more opportunity for more students. It'll be functioning around the same as an RTI model room. And there'll be resource rooms. So the director has also, Mr. Hershey has also met with the teachers. So they know what's going on. So they could give their input as to, is this like a good setup or not? And with that, now they have the information because their meetings are scheduled for February through March. And so they'll be having those meetings, and if there's any change, I'll update you. Staffing for this looks like it'll maintain with the grade level shifting and the needs of the students, that there won't be any impact to staffing on this. It'll just be having the staff to move. Once we know what the IEPs are, then we'll know and can work with the staff of who would be the best person for the right spots. Any questions about special education? And in future meetings, I'll probably go through this. Nothing's updated, go much faster on each slide, just so you're not scared. Hiring of a principal. Put this one in just because you told me right now. I typed it in real quick. Dave will jump in there any times he wants, but it was posted December 12th, closed on the 5th. So we have gone through the applicants. Go ahead, Dave. I see you grabbing your mic already.
Yep, correct. We've gone through all the applicants, and you're correct. We have the first round next week, those 2 days, the 16th and 17th. Second round will be the following week on January 22nd. We did have, I felt, quite a number of applicants. 22 total applicants, and I feel some very strong candidates.
And we really we're sticking with what we established before with individuals who have experience teaching, have experience being an administrator, and we were looking for someone that had elementary experience, middle school experience, and has reading. We're looking for all those in a candidate, plus a personality. Because we feel it's very important, and people smile when I say that, but it's true. We need someone that can work with people, that's going to listen to people, that's going to engage people, because that is their position to be part of the school. We don't need someone who just sits there and dictates what to do. We need someone that's going to be part of the community and the building and the climate and culture and help establish it.
Out of the 22, how many are going through the first round?
8. We've selected 8.
Okay.
We have 2 days for each day.
And then I think Jane mentioned a little bit, we have a really good cross-section of stakeholders on the committee.
Basically, we have every stakeholder except for a student. And then the second round of interviews, I put January 22nd. That's the current plan. It might change by a day or two. That round is with me. And I'll be at the other one too. I'll be at both of them, but it's moving the people forward to me. And then we're going to present it at the Board of Education meeting on the 12th, and the start date will be in March, and that's where we'll have to work that out based on everyone we have is employed, so it'll based on their letter of resignation and what it is in their contract in their district of when they can start.
So what kind of, like, it's March and then September, like, what kind of planning is being done with, like, current administrators to kind of, when the person comes on board, to kind of try to get some things thought through? Because someone coming in new is probably going to look towards guidance for the people that have been here longer. So what type, because March could actually turn into April depending on the notice that they need to give. And I'm just getting concerned with the amount of time.
The individual we hire should be willing to do, I don't want to say do double work, but would be actually being able to spend time when they're done with that job to come here. So I would want someone has that personality and that dedication right off the get-go. To answer your specific question, what's being done with current administration, I know the middle school, they've presented multiple ideas to me about scheduling and different ideas. I'm trying to hold them back of telling me to make decisions, because there are certain decisions I can make. In fact, there's one I'm working with the union on now that's a decision I think would be appropriate for a superintendent to make, has to do with contracts and different days of work for individuals. But so they're looking at schedules, like you'll see one up here, the RTI coming up, so they have plans for RTI, the foundations, what they're doing with SEL. Amy's already volunteered in getting her notes ready for Mrs. Stanfield for when she was in the II of what to do. I've asked for resources, even talked to teachers about what was there. For instance, when you go in the departments, I'll give you the information now. I was talking with the art department, and they were going through of what the schedule was like for art. Art used to be when there was an II twice in a cycle. Now they're getting it once in a cycle for fourth grade. That's also where the elementary principals, as I say, the third grade transition, but we get into the fourth grade and what they're doing now. And that's also then where they'll get in here with the teachers of what they're doing. And you'll see the list of what to do, and you'll look at the list and go, well, none of these things seem too bad. No, they're not in themselves anything huge to make decisions. The piece will be, let me see if it's the next slide. Skip one, I'm going to skip one here. Decision will be information gathered from individuals with experience. And so that's what I have as a directive to all administrators now and teachers, is the request to good things, bad things from before, good things, bad things from now, and start to think of these creative ideas. And they're already flowing over and being presented to me and talked to me. So I'm keeping all the notes. And so when the new person comes on board, that's also where I would be meeting with them, probably at least daily, maybe every other day, as they're going around learning, what did you learn today? What did you hear? To try to give them perspective of, well, where's the weight of this and what's the weight of this? I've been here long enough, over a decade, where I could say, well, what are you going to follow up with that question? And then monitor what they're going to say as to, oh, these would be good follow-up questions back to administration, back to teachers. I guess a lot of information in short. They're putting together a long list of things they want to talk about, develop, and partner with, and provide advice for already.
I just got a quick question. Principal is a key role. This
Yes.
is probably one of the biggest roles to hire. What's the contingency plan if the first round of 8 or the 22 don't meet the criteria, don't fit the criteria that we're interviewing for? How do you handle it? What would that look like?
Well, we would know that by the 17th of January.
Correct.
So probably at the 18th of January, the board would get an email from me saying that we're going out for a second posting with a 2-week turnaround window, depending if we got different applicants, better applicants, and then if we didn't, then we'd come back and you would ask this very tough question: would there be a point where we might change the course? That could be a point where that could be a conversation I come back to the board and we have. Based on the applicants we have, I don't think that's going to happen.
Okay.
There's just, I personally think they're all very, very highly qualified individuals that could do a spectacular job. I always look for that natural break. That natural break was at 8, where all of a sudden you know, and that's not to say the other people weren't great, the other, however many, because it's just, we have a very specific role we're looking for, and even of the other ones, there's a tremendous number of them who I think could have great places here within the district for another job. It's just somewhere you had to draw the line. So for those of you who are watching up to 22, if you're not picked, fabulous, fabulous resumes.
Well, I think it's important because, at some point, I want to make sure we're not, and this was brought up by the community, forcing it, right?
Right.
It has to be a good fit. This is a key role. This is a key position. Not making sure we've got a diverse group interviewing. I think that's extremely important. Just trying to make sure that we have a little bit of conversation, what if, right?
Yep.
And if that does happen, we have to go through the appropriate process.
And that would be it. That would be where I would draw the line for it.
Okay.
Because you could still move that through fast enough. If you do a 2-week, might have to ask for a special board meeting, but I could still probably get the person on instead by the beginning of March, middle of March, by the end of March.
Okay.
And that's why that's that timeline.
Okay, we'll address it as we need to. I just don't, I don't want to I want to make sure it's not a forced, I want to make sure that is a logical transition and that everybody is on board with moving within that timeframe.
Yeah,
Because
no.
that was key.
And that's that is a very important question to ask. And for the whole board, to continue asking, as you see different things as key positions, please ask them. So operational plan, and what I mean by this, I picked these words just because I liked them. What are we doing for different things to make the building work? So completion of the cafeteria, the renovation, that should be done by February. And just, this is nothing we are doing because the 4th grade is moving up here. It is something that's in the current capital project. It's just when it's finishing. So I thought it's important to know that is happening, and also important for the community to know it's not something we did special. It's something we have half complete already, and whether they came here or not, it would be done. Reassign teachers, talk to the teachers. They want to know as soon as possible, get the principal on board. We'll be getting that out in March. Really early April is when I'd like them here. Might even be able to back that up to March, but I'm very confident by the beginning of April we could have that. Once the person's in position, we'd go out to hire the clerical person for him, or him or her, I should say, sorry, because there's both in the applicant pool. To get that posting out there, to make sure that they have their right-hand person, and then they start developing procedures for how people enter the building, which again, they would be going and getting training, so the clerical position would be the assistant would be going and getting training from the other building, so they could go and sit with them. So therefore, they're not put in there trying to figure out how it is. They can actually see how it's done by people that have lots of expertise. Counselor, we'd be looking to get that individual in by May. I would definitely want them in here by the 1st of July so they can help with the planning. That worked very well when we hired the counselors for the primary buildings back a few years ago. The reason I picked May is because that's when people are graduating. So we have another group of candidates we could get from. Principal office update, and that's just getting the office ready for the principal. Would probably happen in July in talking to Dave, but as I said today, they already dragged me over there and starting to look at it, so I think Dave usually likes to excel on his schedules, but we also have to be cognizant of we're running a building now and not interrupting the students that are in the building. Same thing with the front entrance renovation. That's where they'd be putting in the permanent, the bulletproof glass, the window to pass things through like the other buildings. Nurse's office update. There's actually the nurse that we believe will be in there, was in there today going over with Dave, and then they had me go in there too to look at how it would be set up, cots, sinks. She would like a sink. We talk about different locations, so we're gonna get back to her and make sure that's the appropriate place she would like it in collaboration.
When we did the tour of the building
Yes.
initially, walking around with some parents, one of the questions was about music. And the fact that the music department or office is as far down in the middle school as you can be. Are we planning to do something with music so that our 4th and 5th graders don't need to go through the middle school to get to,
Actually, Dave and I had a conversation with the teachers that would be teaching that level. There's two options where they could go down through there. Fifth graders already do it. And people think, oh, if they're in this building, the bell would ring, they'd go walking down the hall. That would not be the case. It would be the bell would ring, kids would move in the middle school, bell would ring, everyone's out of the hall. The halls are, I can't think of what your friend, Keith was in the high school. You can see how, sorry about that. I got my mind going too fast. That's funny. Sorry. And I don't know where I lost what I was talking about. Oh yeah, the kids going through, so the halls are empty. And that's when they would go down, but the teachers were expressing that they really felt they would like to have a room down in the fourth grade. So again, that's what we'd be entertaining, that's where the meetings we're having. And even today, we were talking about how there's one room with soundproofing on it, right down there at the top of the 3 stairs, which would actually be at the end of the fourth, before the 5th grade hall. It was like a practice room, it's a perfectly acoustic, that's what we used before.
okay. And then all of the, like the blue light systems and all the things, upgrades we've done for the other buildings, are they all done?
They're already done and in place,
in
because we're
place,
using
okay.
those rooms, and so they're
Okay.
already
Okay.
in all the rooms.
Okay.
What we would have to do, though, is put a control panel in the principal's office, and that's why we're in there talking with it, with technology, and that's where technology said a pole box too, which we hadn't thought about. And they're like, well, we need one of these too. Which they're like, yeah, we can wire it anywhere, we're in great shape. So established by the building principal, as you said, that's a key role. So these things, it's when I say established by the building principal, I mean that in, the superintendent's not going to come walking down and telling you what to do. This is your building, you need to be a leader, you need to make decisions, and you need to make decisions based on talking to people that have been here, not about what you believe walking in from where you've been, but what is Iroquois. One thing all our buildings have are visions and missions. So that's one thing that they're going to have to establish for the intermediate building. That's usually typically done by a committee. So that's where we'd have to have the staff on board, and then they would have to have a committee together to start to establish that, which would also help to start to establish the culture. This is who we are in this building. They would also have to meet into the vision and mission of the district. So they parallel each other, cascading. Daily building schedule, that would be March and April, which we talked a little bit about, where people have advice of what was done. And it's interesting hearing people at different levels. They have conflicting advice. So this person's not going to walk in there and say, oh yeah, this is the way to do it. Like I mentioned earlier, they used to do art 2 days in a cycle. Contracts have changed since they were there. Used to be like 10, 11, 12 classes in 4th grade and 5th grade. Now they're down to 7 in each. So again, even the staffing of what it would take to function with these are a little different. RTI program design, looking at the possibility of having a 4-8 design with that. Location and delivery of specials. So like library is pretty well defined, but like we were talking about music, art's another one. There's a room right then at the 5th grade hall. Would we want that there? Would you want to put it in the middle? It could go either way. There's a room with a sink in there. Physical education is kindly set. We have the gymnasium, it's where it is, we're not moving it. But you have things like RTI, special ed, not on this, back on the special ed where you have the one room, that we talked about in special ed with the guided study class. Where would that go? So these are the things that we're talking about. Recess location, right now, I've spoken with the school resource officers. They're going around to the 5th grade teachers, the 4th grade teachers, to get their opinion on this. So when the principal sits down with them, which will also be sitting down with the teachers, but the school resource officers aren't just talking with the blinders of their position, but know what the teachers are saying. So these are more inclusive of all the conversations and knowing what all parties are saying. Lunch times, you laugh at that one, but what are the lunch times and how, do all the kids go to lunch at once and there's a long line down the hall? Do they come in staggered? Who goes first, 5th or 4th grade? Depends on the programs and the specials. Student classroom assignment. Teachers have different opinions on this, and that's where they have to work with the elementary principals of which kids are which there, and everyone says, ooh, I want to be with my friend. Well, sometimes you being with your friend is not the best thing for the educational setting, but you being with someone you're friends with is better than your best friend. But then that's where you have to look at that. Teaming of teachers, how will that look? So these are all things that are going to be established when the principal comes in, and this is great. We have a little list of them, and where I get this list, questions from talking to teachers, questions from talking to the principals. Faculty meetings, what has happened? So I met with the 4th grade, the 5th grade, the UPK, the art department, and the music department is going to be on January 23rd. That's when we try to solidify. Today's during Regents Week, and why it's tough to solidify right now, we don't know what their proctoring schedule is, so therefore we just have to move that one around. Union, we were meeting with the union, talking to them. We do have regular monthly meetings, so this is really nothing new. And they're going back and talking to their members, because I don't want someone to say, well, I was afraid to say this to Mr. Schofield. They can say it to the union brings it to them. And there are some contractual things in there that we have to look at, where 5th grade is doing it one way because of the contract, 4th grade, because it's in the elementary, is doing it another way. And how it was written, we wrote it K through 4, and then didn't have the other buildings in there, so we have to go back and they have to make sure their members are in agreement with what's going on, because that's their job, is to represent their members.
Are we gonna, plan on helping the 4th grade teachers pack up their entire classroom and move it to this building somehow?
When they
Providing
move
any aid
down,
or anything?
that's a really tough question, and they've asked that too. Talk to some of the union leadership. A lot of teachers in the middle school had their room shifted last year with a reduction in staff there. They moved their own rooms. When the 4th grade moved down, they moved their own rooms. I'm not saying no to that answer. It's not they don't have to put it in their car and carry it up here. We have vans and stuff, and grounds helps that. But how do you differentiate one person moving compared to another person moving? I know last time, in fact, we were even talking about there's going to be a 4th grade band and orchestra concert on May 24th. Was talking to teachers again, the music teacher, about making sure that's established. That at that time, if we could, when they have their rehearsal for that, if there's a way we could leave the teachers down the building, maybe aides bring them up or someone else. That's in May. They could start packing up things in their room then. So we're going to try to find times to provide them time of when they can do things with that.
Yeah, and I guess I meant like physically moving.
Oh, physically moving, they put them in boxes and
Yeah.
we go and pick them up and carry it for them.
Okay.
I mean, if they want to put it in their car, they're more than welcome to.
Okay.
But that's where grounds goes with our cube van. It goes down, brings it up here, make sure your room number's on it,
Okay.
and we put it right in the room. Truthfully, we might put it outside the room, because then we finish cleaning the room, then we'll put it inside the
Okay.
room. Sorry, misunderstood your question.
Yep.
Building tours, at the meetings, I said I'd always be open to taking someone around the tour if they wanted to come in. I've had 2 people call, so I have those 2 scheduled. Then once the principal is on, we'll have some open times at night where people can come in and tour the building with him or her, so that they can, have conversations, they can become a known quantity with that. And please know when I say he, I'm using it as a generic term and not a definition of who has the job. And I think that's my last slide. Yes. Does anyone have any questions or any holes? I mean, again, we're going to keep working on this, building on this as we go on.
What's the plan to communicate to the parents how we're doing progress-wise? Are you gonna do that in like Monday messages or?
So yes, some of this will be in Monday messages and some of it will be in principal messages. So that's why we actually established our meetings first thing Friday morning, because that's when the principals are sending out messages on Fridays to their parents. And that way I have it in preparation for my Monday message of who would be communicating it. And some of them will be in both, because I think there's some aspects that the whole community should know. And this way, yes, the parents would hear it twice, but it's important for the community to know some aspects, like the hiring of a principal. The community should know that we've hired a new principal and here's who it is and when their starting time is.
Yeah, because even like the mascot, because I think we took some criticism with talking about the mascot till we're blue in the face, which we needed to.
Right.
But making sure that this is as important and we
Well, this will
communicate
be
as frequently as possible, even if if we don't have anything to report for a week, but something
Yeah,
every week, I think that would help the community and the parents be on the same page as we are.
yep, and even, it's easy with the, the big thing right now is the, principal hiring and just keeping them updates that, we've had the applications this week, we're holding the first round of interviews. In the second round, we had X number of people move through to the second round. We have selected this candidate and they will be presented on the board. And at that time, the board hears the name will be the same time everyone hears the name. Please watch the February board meeting to learn who the name is. Because I wouldn't want it to get out in their community, before they were able to get to their appropriate people in that place professionally.
And if I can just throw something in on that note, our board meeting next month is not a typical Wednesday. We had changed it last year based on information we thought. So our board meeting next month is on Monday, the 12th, just so people are aware. Right.
Yes, definitely. And that's a good reminder to everyone, especially me. No. Are there any other questions with the fourth grade transition?
I just have a comment, not really a question. I think what you presented was quite comprehensive, and, as you go through it, I would expect that you maybe add things or take things off as you know more or as they're finalized, so that we can kind of get to that concise list as we move through to make sure we're not missing anything. But my sort of question as I was stating that is, as items come up, will you be adding them to that list if it's important
Yes.
enough?
Oh, yes, this is a working document, it'll keep working. I'll use the principal, hiring of a principal. Once I have a principal hired, that slide will come off, that timeline would come off. But the things on there of operational, they might just have completed after them, or recess, final decision was, might move those to a slide that where decisions are made, or I might leave it where it is.
Right.
But move it to the end, that way people can see progress. I even toyed with the idea of changing the format from topic to month, what's happened in each month. But at this stage of the game, I thought it was more important to have it by topic of what's happening in each area based on the slide I had at the beginning with the timeline of when things were happening.
Yeah, and I would suggest reference on the bottom of items that were like finalized, right?
Yep.
And the date that we or that was, the decision was made. So at least it's holding to some of the timeline that we're projecting.
Yeah, and that's it, and hopefully some of them will come even earlier than we're
Yeah.
projecting, so that'd be awesome. Mascot update, as everyone heard in the Monday message, July 1st, we will be the Red Hawks. I want to caution everyone to be careful, it's not Hawks, it's Red Hawks. So any of the boosters that would be producing or thinking about it, the two words will need to be there always for anything that's produced. Really looked at it, and I want it to be very clearly defined of why Red Hawks was selected. Other than over 3,000 votes, 70-some% of them were for Red Hawk. It is because in the submissions of it, the comments of why it was put forth is the Red Hawk for its determination, focus, leadership, clarity, intelligence, intuitive decision-making. Those are the things of what were the representation, the characteristics of it. Other comments made by the people who submitted it to be considered, has a tradition of strength, intelligence, the ability to adapt and learn. So I think having this definition, especially with our main name being Iroquois, it's important to know and the state to know, and I will be sending this to the state for them to know this is the meaning of Red Hawk and why it was so, what Iroquois has beyond it, beyond what anyone else says, that might make social media or any other form that could be there over the next century as we're the Red Hawks.
And is that an FYI to the state, or does the state have to approve it?
It's an FYI to the state. I did talk to the individuals in charge of this when we had the final five, because they say, no, we're not approving it, you make the selection, but let's be real, they're all going to be watching it, so you know, I want to make sure I'm covering all the bases and they're kept informed of what we're doing, so if they had anything, and he told me that they were, all great names. There was one that he asked me the reason why, but it was not Red Hawks. It was one of the other ones, and I can't remember which one now. I don't remember. And I stated the reason behind it from the list of what the people submitted. He goes, oh, that's beautiful, great reason.
Do we have any other legality behind it, like a trademark or anything like that, to make sure that Iroquois is the Red Hawks? Or, I mean, is there any other steps that need to be taken?
That's why, in the Friday memo, I came out with my recommendation of using that one group, because that's one of the things they would do is look into trademarks or anything, and that'll come down to the picture that's associated with it. I don't think you can claim an animal for a trademark or a name, but any picture, and we've had 22 submissions already for logos, and some of them I can see the watermarks on them where they got them from somewhere else. So we will be unable to carry those forward in searches and things like that.
Okay.
And remind me, is there another mascot committee meeting, or we're just doing this virtually?
There will be another one. We'll get those dates out. They're going to be looking at all the submissions and picking the top 25 again to be voted on. We're already at 22, so I imagine we will have to narrow it down, but there will be some that will just be crossed off.
Do we know what the date is?
We don't
for
have
it?
the
We
date
don't have
yet
the
for
date?
that. No, we don't have the date.
Doug,
Yes.
when it came to the actual mascot and the imagery, and I'm sure it's gonna still happen, but do people know there's like certain guidelines with that? And what I'm saying is I saw like, like individual feathers, or someone like sent me a picture of a red hawk, wearing a headdress that, that obviously we can't do that. But do people generally
That's
know
where the
that?
committee will go through that selection
After they
process
send
and
them
do
in?
it.
Okay.
Because I think no matter what we say to people,
It's still gonna
I
happen.
think were you on the committee? No, well, the members who were on the committee, they saw some names that were submitted that if you knew we weren't going to pick them, why'd you send them in?
Right.
But I think Jim's point is that, and I forget if it was in the Monday message, so apologies if it was, just to
Be clear.
Yeah.
reiterate what the guidance is. I would hate to have somebody waste the time to get super excited about a drawing, only
Yeah.
for us to look at it in 5 seconds to say, this doesn't fall. Maybe just a reminder of what the guidelines are.
Yep, we'll do that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I think another piece would be, whatever is submitted, we have the official, it'd be important to make sure it's something that can be reproducible on a shirt. I'm just looking to see if anyone has any logos on their shirts right now, but, like, I like the Spider brand, but it's very simple, you can see the spider, how simple it is. And so it has to be something that we would be able to, boosters would be able to use and so on. And just a note too, I think it's important to know, I went through, I did go through, I cleaned off anything, any duplicates, anyone that didn't give me the appropriate information for the voting, that was cleaned off. And then I did run the percentages by each group to see if there was any skewing of any data or anywhere. And every single group did have a supermajority for Red Hawks. So it was, whether you did it as a conglomerate group or each individual group, every single category was for Red Hawks.
And I am impressed with the public that this vote far exceeded our budget vote numbers. And that people got out and put in their submissions, because people were very scared about the otters. Some people were, but I think that it was impressive how many people actually voted.
I say it all the time when I'm out in groups and everything. I have always been impressed, well, I've always been impressed with the board, I said that earlier, but also the community. Even with the voting, there could have been a lot of people going in there and trying to skew it and trying to and people held to the rules. They stayed in integrity with what was done. As a majority, I'm sure, there's always a few, but I'm always very pleased with the community and how they conduct themselves.
Ballpark, if you happen to know, what percentage of them were students?
Oh, I don't know the percentage of that.
I would,
Ask the
I
question.
don't
and
have
does he
it. I
the
can
data?
tell
of
you.
course I'm gonna ask him a question. Is
Student, 565 votes that were accepted
Okay,
of students out of the
pretty good.
total of 3,317.
That's pretty good.
What group is this? That was the student. Employee was 167. Alumni was 1,337. And
You had to ask.
resident was 1,250.
Awesome.
Good deal.
How did I keep these? Okay, the next thing I have on policies. The reason I have policies on here is usually we're reading, it's a new policy or revision. Very rarely do we have retiring policies, so I want to make sure it was clear to the public. I did inform the board on this on a Friday memo, but the new policy is one that's required by regulation. We have a retiring policy. There are some of these policies that weren't required by law or regulation. And when the Erie One policy group went through and looked at them, they found they were repetitive in different policies, and so they kind of put them together. That's why you see one's being retired, but it's also part of this one, because they were combining them and doing that. And that's why we have them in three groups on the agenda, so I wanted to be clear with that. It's not that we're not doing things to the public, it's just that they're already in somewhere else.
Just because policies are actually on the agenda, do we have a policy for drones? Because I know like a couple months ago, we had a drone that was on campus that was close to interrupting, or like outside the windows where it was interrupting instructions. And I read something recently that the New York legislation, some senators trying to pass a bill to have.
Yeah, they're trying to pass a bill so you could not be on school grounds and doing it. Right now, there isn't one. I don't believe we have an exact policy for drones, but we do have where only appropriate personnel can be on here for appropriate reasons. And in my eyes right now, you coming here and personally flying your drone by a school window is not appropriate. So how I would handle it, and the SROs are directed to it, is to inform the individual here, thank you for coming and wanting to be on our grounds. However, this is the wrong time, the wrong place, and you're doing the wrong thing. And if the person, decides to give any pushback, say you will be receiving a letter from the superintendent that you're trespassing and will no longer be allowed on grounds if you come.
Because I think the person was in, from what I had heard, that the person was in a car and we couldn't identify the license plate number
Correct.
because our outside cameras might not be
The distance
The
was
best
too far from where they were.
resolution
Yeah, the
possibly,
SROs
but-
were able to determine where they were, but by that time, they had left. But with the capability of them being able to go further and further, that would be considered trespassing if you're doing that. That's what we're going to carry that under.
Okay, so, but I don't know if, like,
We don't have one that says drone, but that's how I'm going to deal with it, as trespassing.
yeah, but like if there is a bill that the legislators are talking about, it might be worth kind of looking into from the Erie County School Board. I mean, not that it probably happens that much, but I'm just thinking about, the type of information that could be collected or interruption to,
It's just an interruption to school is
Yeah.
enough for me not to have it here.
I can
Yeah.
think of times when we have asked somebody to come and use their drone to take the picture of the students all
Yeah.
lined up.
But
you
if
know,
it's
with an eye and
authorized.
stuff.
Yeah, but that's authorized, that's different.
Well, I mean, if you make a law that says you can't have drones on a school, then you can't authorize that either, right?
Yeah, well, that's
So,
why we want the law to
I
written the
think-
right
yeah,
way.
It's gotta
Yeah.
be written the right way, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
I think the only thing is you guys were talking about it, technically the drone could be trespassing, but the person could not.
Yeah,
So-
and that's where you can get into loopholes and things like
Right,
that.
so I think, just so we understand that, because I
Yeah.
think that that actually could happen. You could be at the corner, you could be down the road, and you could fly a drone. How do you catch it? There's ways, but that
Isn't there,
that just takes more technology.
There's another law against that, Bob.
I thought that there was a law, though, that you had to have, if you were in operation of one, you had to be in direct line of sight, and you can't be that far
There
away
are
from it.
FAA laws against
Yeah.
that.
So,
There are,
But they're already doing something wrong.
Right, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. There are, but it doesn't, that's different, but yeah, they could do it.
Yeah.
Without you knowing.
Okay, thanks.
Curriculum update, I have that, but I also have a note in here, that's because that's part of recognitions. All right, curriculum update, thank you.
Hello, everyone. Before I begin discussing what I had planned on discussing, just to follow up on the AI, next week, Western New York Libraries are going to be hosting an AI training and informational session for all of our librarians. So we're also sending not just our librarians, but some of our tech people. And then at Erie 2, their tech director is also doing some AI classes, so we already have some teachers going to that. Right now, the teachers it's open for teachers so they can explore and use it. And in fact, in the teachers who are working with our literacy work, and also all the way up through the secondary, they are beginning to use AI even more. It's still shut off for our students, but what is important, what we're noticing, it's just like when we did research in a library for our master's or undergrad work, it's all in the questions you ask it. And so that will actually be a very important lesson as we move forward with our students to ask proper questions. So just to give you an update on that. I wrote what I need to cover today. I'm going to be going on and off of it, but there's so much to cover. I just wanted to make certain that I caught it all, so I beg your forgiveness. January has been very, very busy for the governor. And you may have heard that she said it a few weeks back, but also yesterday, that she wants to go back to basics, especially for reading. And so she's proposed, and she's going to be asking for the legislative support on it, to go back to evidence-based best practices using scientifically proven techniques when it comes to reading and literacy. And she's also proposing funding to invest in teacher training in the science of reading best practices and going to our SUNY and CUNY systems to ask them to redefine and realign their coursework necessary for certification to align with the science of reading. She also, about a week and a half ago, signed a bill to create a statewide dyslexia task force. So all of this is really exciting. And if the governor is successful in her goals, we hope that this will provide the financial support to continue the work that we've already done. Since COVID, our teachers and administrators expressed increasing concerns related to the decreasing proficiency rates and increasing percentages of students needing support services such as RTI. This grassroots movement grew to recognize that our Tier 1 program was deficient. So it's a Tier 1, as just a reminder, it's the program that every student receives in our classrooms. It's important that the governor includes investments into teacher training and looking to work with our college prep programs, because what we discovered here is that simply purchasing a program is not enough. Our administrators and teachers have had several conversations, and from that, we realized, through no one's fault, we were ill-prepared, we were ill-prepared to teach our students how to read. Therefore, with the help of our two literacy TOSAs, we partnered with a group called the Read Charitable Foundation and the Reading League to help us design a series of classes for every UPK through 5 classroom, RTI, and special education teacher and administrator. The purpose of these classes is to help us build our knowledge in the science of reading so that we understand what we teach, when we teach it, and why we teach it, and what happens and what do we do when it doesn't work. Although some teachers attended webinars and classes prior to our changes, we formally launched in October of 2022. From that time until this coming June, every K through 5 classroom, RTI, and special education teacher will have received 70 hours of professional development. The sessions lined up to what we've already talked about, Scarborough's rope, and include phonics and phonemic awareness, Orton Gillingham, RTI related classes, oral language, and vocabulary. This spring, we look forward to adopting our new program. And in the summer, not only will we be providing professional development on how to use that specific program, but we will now begin to address the other parts of the reading rope, that being learning, comprehension, which really is about vocabulary, background knowledge, grammar, syntax, things like that. Training will continue with our consultants and also our TOSAs. What I want to do is take this time to acknowledge the really, really hard work of our teachers and our administrators. This has not been easy at all. And it's challenging our philosophies that we've held in our past. And it's asking everyone to re-examine what we need to do for the betterment of our students. And what's really nice to hear, and I want to thank the teachers and administrators specifically for this, they recognized it, and we're actually spearheading a lot of things that the state is just beginning. So kudos to them. Wonderful.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
If there's no questions there, do you want to talk about the strategic plan? We're talking about the communication in the app.
Yeah. So thanks for your patience. And thank you especially to Deb Metz and Ken Piasante and our Erie One folks who have been supporting this. We had a hiccup that we talked about last month with Google and Apple, and thankfully those are all taken care of. Our launch will be official on January 22nd. We're going to give information to Doug as to how to download the apps in both of the stores. I want to specifically...
And by me, you mean me to put it on my Monday message.
Correct. No, Doug's going to take all our phones
I
and
get the
download.
rest of you.
Yeah, that's it.
I want you to, I'd like everyone to consider the fact that this is our first formal iteration, that there may be things that people were expecting that may not be there yet. But what we will be doing is watching our traffic on the app and determining if we need to add or delete something, rearrange the buttons in some way. There is a very, I was impressed by it, a cool part of the app called the activity stream. And what that activity stream allows, actually does, is it takes information from each of our buildings and our Facebook page, and it puts it into a chronological order. And if it is something that's on one of the calendars, you can simply click the button and it can be added into your own personal calendar. So that was a nice feature. And then we also have a calendar, but the athletic calendar, that program does not allow us to combine, so that there will be a separate button
for the athletic calendar that you can get to.
The one I like with the calendar, and Jim showed us that a long time ago, with another one, where when you go in your phone and you set it for the building you want and you know, the filters you want, next time you go there, they're the same. You don't have to try to redo it again and again and again. So I think that'd be great for parents, where if you're an Alma and high school student, you set it for that, you go to the doctor's office and you can look at that calendar and go, yep, you know, my kids have no events that day. If they're in sports, you'd have to do a little something different, but then you could download and have those.
And I just want to obviously thank Mary Jo and the administration, because, you know, going back when we started the strategic community, I've been like asking for an app and looking at it for a long time, and, you know, it's been a good couple of years, but it's really cool. And thank you that we've accomplished that now. I think it really is a big accomplishment for us.
You're welcome, and thank you for the support in that. And now we're going to go to redo our website, and so there will be more information on that to come.
I just had a quick question. Is there a reason why the athletic calendar and the other calendar cannot be merged?
I think it's a licensing issue that we were hoping that it would happen, but no school district can do that. And so the way around it is to have the two separate calendars.
Is that because you're referring to the arbiter? Because, yeah, they're separate little own entity? Yeah.
Yeah, the athletic calendar is run through Section 6, not through the district.
Yeah, it's called arbiter. It's their own service.
Okay.
Yeah, there's an app for that though too, it's quite good.
But actually, I'm gonna make a note, because that's something I'm gonna talk to the
Maybe
president, the superintendent representative
It'd be,
there.
I mean, even though they're separate, it'd be nice that the click-throughs are seamless and that it should not feel different. You know, I know there's always another button, just click over here, but it's always that the other button's over here, and the purpose of the app is for communication.
Correct.
So if we could just look at that as you're looking through the click-throughs, as individuals are accessing it, it seems pretty benign, but it's just an extra step that you're gonna have to take.
And that, I'm glad you brought that up, because the button that takes you to the arbiter calendar takes you directly to the calendar. It's one click. And the same with our other calendar. But when we were designing what we thought would be desired by the community, we wanted to make certain that individual buildings you didn't have to click through just to get to everybody's name. So we did two different things. Number one, we do have a button that takes you directly to a specific building. But then we also have a button that's called Our District and Schools at a Glance. And if you click it once and then say go to the high school, it lists all of the necessary contact information. It lists all of the administrators. It lists the counselors, all of that information at a glance, so that you don't have to go to, say, one particular building and try and search it out.
Sure.
So we've tried to do where we say 3 clicks on a website, we're like, no, 1 to 2 clicks on this.
That's good. I mean, I build software as
Yeah.
a profession, so just sensitive to the user experience. And I'll leave it there, because user experience will make or break an app. We all could sit here and say, we did the best we could, and it's 1 click, and they may say, I want 3. So user experience is gonna be important, and community is gonna be important, because if we develop this app and nobody uses it, or still
Correct.
finds it cumbersome, we have to be able to continue to adjust.
So what we intend on doing is surveying after a couple months to get some input from the community.
So we didn't do any user experience prior.
Just among the group that was designing it.
Okay.
But as Jim had said, we've been at this for about a year or so
It started
during COVID.
it started with the strategic plan meetings.
Yeah.
And that,
Yeah, and that's what public gave input on.
Yeah.
was 2000.
Yeah.
That was,
So that's what we based it off.
Last year, 2 years ago?
no, when it
It was
was
2003,
Sharon,
probably
I wasn't
2001.
on the board yet.
When'd you get on the board?
my second year, so about 3 years ago.
I know it was during COVID, so.
So I would say in the industry, it changes weekly, monthly. So it's just making sure we have the pulse on it, that's all.
Okay.
Not to say
Well-
we have to change it, but I would say let's launch it, let's get some user experience, and let's get some of that opportunity feedback so that you can make the appropriate changes.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So as we said, this is part of the strategic planning communication, so does anyone else have any questions about communication? So what we'll probably be doing next is going into, looking at how we communicate in how many ways. We said earlier about like with the third, with the transition of the fourth grade coming up, that we'll put things through the messages of the principals and the superintendent. But for other things, is that the right and best way? So I'm gonna be looking to get, I'll probably need one representative from the board to get on this, but just to talk about communication, I'm gonna get some key people, small group, and then probably get some surveys out to the public of how to put that together, of what they want. Once we determine what people want, make sure we're right, because as a parent, I wanna know my kids' grades. Who do I want, and then we say, well, who is the best person to give the grades out? Probably the teacher. Where do you want a snow day, or where do you want the communication from a power outage of a building? To make sure I'm not putting out a message, with the whole campus being out, the middle school put one out, and the high school put one out. Or should it have just been one of them? And things like that, I'm using these as immediate examples, but for everything we do, John did a presentation of the budget. Who should be putting out that message? I would think that would be coming out of central office always. So trying to make it very clear to the community of, this is your source of this type of communication. Does that sound good?
Yeah, I'd be interested in participating
Okay.
in that.
He's writing your name down, you're done.
He's done. Rest of you, go home, have a good dinner.
No, I think communication's important, Doug, and I think what you mentioned, the style, the method, the process of communication, how we distill information out to the community, and how we have even communication through the board, it's all important.
Yeah.
So I'd be more than happy to
I really like
participate.
the one where you use here, how we distill it, because that's it. And Chuck's kind of said it similar in other days. Here's where we put the information. You have a responsibility too, to know where it is so you can go and get it. We're not going to plaster it on every telephone pole going down Main Street, so you might read it when you're walking down Main Street.
And the one thing that continues to get high praise from the communities, they like that, the messages and the text, whatever, comes out, but they like the fact that when the phone rings, they know it's important. So the one mother said that if the phone rings in Iroquois, I know I need to pick up. So, so the phone's not such a, cluster of everything. So as it comes across on your phone, okay, I can read this when I get home. But if it's ringing in Iroquois, that means it's something important that I need to listen to. So
Yeah.
I've heard that a bunch of times.
Good. And that was the intention of this, so that's great.
Except when there's popcorn burning in the, remember that one?
Yeah.
When everyone flew to their phone thinking, oh my gosh.
The building's on fire.
The building's on fire.
No, it was just popcorn.
Yeah.
It was good popcorn I was making, though. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks, Doug.
I'm gonna move on to recognitions then. Let's see, in here, I want to keep recognizing the Kiwanis Club of Marilla because they're looking and they're fundraising, pardon? I had it last month too, the playground and shelter out there. So they're looking to move forward with that, so keep your eyes out for fundraising opportunities. Last I heard, they had tens of thousands of dollars already. And in talking to Dave Carlin, they're talking about an architect now. So that's great and exciting. So if you're Marilla or just would like to donate, be part of it, keep that going. Middle school musical, we already mentioned, it's Newsies on the 26th and 27th of this month. I expect to see everyone there. And that's the whole community, not just the people in this room. National Honor Society, Iroquois High School, Rural Outreach Center called The Rock, is thanking them for their support, for their in-kind donation of holiday gifts. So thank you to the, National Honor Society for getting out there. 12th grader Trevor, 11th grader Victoria for being awarded December Student of the Month. So congratulations there. pass that along to your son if you would for me. Congratulations to the following all Western New York Scholar Athlete winner: Parker for the boys cross country, Linda for the girls tennis, and Alexandra for the field hockey. And then just let the board know that there's a parent meeting coming up, and that the seniors will be going to Disney again this year during Regents Week. One recognition I want to know, typically for donations, we do it during donations, but the Iroquois Foundation, we have a special relationship with them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mini grants that they provided to teachers within our district. So a special thank you to them. And then I did receive an email for the athletic director, and it was talking about, and I mentioned this before, about the girls varsity field hockey and their recent accomplishments in the state championships. They did spectacular there. I wanted to bring that up again to the board. I didn't know if the board wanted to consider doing anything special for them, inviting them in. This is the first time the Section 6 Class B team ever advanced to finals in the sport of field hockey. So it was quite an accomplishment. We have other people that have gone to states and things like that, an individual, but this is a huge accomplishment.
Well, I mean, I definitely feel that we should recognize them by some manner as a board, and then I think we should, after that, put into place some sort of policy on how we do that. Making it to states is really quite an accomplishment, and I don't think it should go unknown or unseen.
And I think there should be one policy maybe for a group and another one for individual too.
Would it be a policy or a practice?
Practice, actually.
Right, I would agree, but I mean, that was, what those, young women accomplished it's remarkable. When you really look at the numbers and what it takes to do that, it's not easy.
And they went to they traveled across the sate 2 years in a row, and that's quite an accomplishment in itself too, for that consistency, for that number of people had to achieve at that level. We had a lot going on the last month or so, that's going to be great to be able to do that and bring that forward. So we'll get out the appropriate invitations for our February meeting, which is on a Monday.
Doug, I wanted to
Kate.
remind you about something Greg Merkel mentioned to you, that you said that you were gonna mention.
Oh, boy, golly.
Jane, Greg just told us. Yeah.
About the SROs giving gifts to family.
Oh, yes, thank you. It's just too much going on. The SROs took it upon themselves for some families in need, and they actually gathered gifts, drove them, took them special to the house. And this is one reason the SROs are more than anyone could imagine of any police force, because they do these special activities all the time for the students of Iroquois. I know Officer Barry was heavily involved in this, so thank you so much to them for doing that for that particular student of Iroquois, but then also for all the other students of Iroquois too. So I'll make sure the board was aware of how they go the extra mile for that.
To note that they took time out of their own schedules, money out of their own pockets to buy gifts, to connect with students at school. I think that says a lot about our SRO program and the people that we have in place here. One more way to go back to something that Chuck said earlier in the evening about how Iroquois community really is a family. And, that's one more example of how, we live that philosophy. So thank you to our SROs for going above and beyond your responsibilities.
And thank you for the reminder too.
Yeah. And actually, I just remembered, I just wanted to mention it, in December, led by Liz Miller and Kim Berry, the football team adopted a family and shopped for Christmas gifts for them and then delivered them through Crossroads. So it's to Chuck's point, it really is widespread within Iroquois to do that.
Beautiful.
And actually raps better than Kim, but we will mention that later. Yeah.
Everyone has a skill. That's all I have. Thank you for how long that was.
Okay. All right, that brings us to 8, recognition of guests. Are there any guests that wish to be recognized? No. Seeing no one else in the audience, I would say no. you. And that brings us to discussion of items on the agenda 11.01 through 23.10, which is our consensus agenda. Are there any items anyone would like to discuss?
I just want to say, speaking of family, we're welcoming 4 new people to the Iroquois family. Miss Amanda Fox, who will be a special ed teacher in the middle school. We have Andrew Taylor, who is stepping in as a long-term sub in music. We have Amy Solom, who is going to be a teacher aide out at Wales. And then Melissa Smith Van Sickle, who will be a part-time cleaner out at Wales as well. So welcome them to the family as well.
We do have quite a list under our donations, 23.09. I know Mr. Schofield has already said thank you to the Iroquois Foundation. I want to kind of reiterate that, and then to say thank you to the other organizations that have supported the district with donations, including Life Touch. So thank you for donating to the school district. Anything else? All right. Then with that, I would like to ask if there is a request to withdraw any specific items from the agenda. Hearing none, then a request to add any specific items to the agenda. Okay, then can I have a motion to approve our consensus agenda 11.01 through 23.10?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Having everyone voted yes, that motion carries unanimously, and that brings us to another recognition of guests for anything not on our agenda. No. And does anybody want to go into an executive session? Okay. Then, that brings us to our adjournment. Can I have a motion to adjourn our meeting?
So moved. Second.
Discussion?
Yes. You may.
All in favor? That motion carries unanimously, and our meeting is adjourned at 8:00.